The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the endless expanse of farmland. The air was thick with the scent of earth and the faint hum of machinery. Clara adjusted the straps of her backpack, her boots crunching against the gravel path that led to the edge of the field. She had been walking for hours, her curiosity driving her forward. The map she had found in her grandfather's attic had led her here, to a place that wasn't supposed to exist. The field stretched out before her, a vast sea of green and gold. But it wasn't the crops themselves that caught her attention, it was the way they were arranged. Rows upon rows of corn, wheat, and soybeans grew in perfect geometric patterns, forming intricate designs that seemed to shift and change as she moved. Circles, triangles, and spirals interlocked with one another, creating a tapestry of living art that defied explanation. Clara stepped closer, her heart pounding in her chest. She had heard stories of crop circles, of course, hoaxes perpetrated by bored farmers or pranksters with too much time on their hands. But this was different. The patterns were too precise, too deliberate to be the work of human hands. She reached out, her fingers brushing against the stalks of corn. They felt real enough, but there was something off about them. A faint vibration, like the hum of a distant engine, seemed to emanate from the plants themselves. She pulled out her phone, snapping a few pictures. The images on the screen only deepened her unease. The patterns were even more intricate than she had realized, with layers of complexity that seemed to stretch on forever. She zoomed in, her breath catching in her throat. There, hidden within the spirals and circles, were symbols, ancient, alien symbols that she had seen before in her grandfather's journals. Clara's mind raced. Her grandfather had been a scientist, a man obsessed with the idea of extraterrestrial life. He had spent years studying crop circles, convinced that they were messages from another world. Clara had always dismissed his theories as the ramblings of an old man, but now she wasn't so sure. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. She needed to get a closer look. She needed to understand what was going on here. But as she stepped further into the field, the air around her seemed to grow heavier, the hum of the plants growing louder. She felt a strange pull, as if the field itself was drawing her and guiding her towards something she couldn't quite see. Clara hesitated, her instincts screaming at her to turn back. But she couldn't. Not now. Not when she was so close to uncovering the truth. She took another step forward and then another, until she was deep within the heart of the field. The patterns surrounded her, swirling and shifting like living things. And then, just as she was about to reach out and touch one of the symbols, the ground beneath her feet began to tremble. Clara froze, her heart pounding in her chest. The hum grew louder, more intense, until it felt like the very air was vibrating around her. And then, with a sudden, deafening roar, the ground split open, revealing a blinding light that seemed to stretch on forever. Clara's vision blurred, her mind spinning as she was pulled into the light. The last thing she saw before everything went black was the field, the patterns, and the symbols, all swirling together in a kaleidoscope of color and sound. And then, nothing. Clara's body felt weightless, as though she were floating in a void. The blinding light that had swallowed her was now a soft, pulsating glow surrounding her like a cocoon. Her senses were overwhelmed. She could hear a low, rhythmic hum, like the heartbeat of some vast, unseen creature. The air was thick with an unfamiliar scent, metallic yet organic, like the smell of rain on hot steel. She tried to move, but her limbs felt heavy, unresponsive. Panic began to rise in her chest, but before it could fully take hold, the light began to dim. She found herself standing, or perhaps floating, in a vast, cavernous space. The walls were smooth and curved, glowing faintly with the same light that had enveloped her. The ground beneath her feet was firm but strange, like a surface that wasn't quite solid, yet not liquid either. It shifted slightly with each step, as though it were alive. Clara's breath came in shallow gasps as she tried to make sense of her surroundings. The patterns from the field were here too, etched into the walls and floor in glowing lines. They pulsed faintly, as though responding to her presence. The symbols she had seen in the crops were everywhere, larger now and more intricate. They seemed to tell a story, one that Clara couldn't quite decipher. She reached out to touch one of the symbols, and as her fingers brushed against the wall, a jolt of energy shot through her. Images flooded her mind, visions of stars, of planets, of beings that were not human. She saw the field above, the crops growing in their perfect patterns, and she understood. This place, this underground chamber, was connected to the field. It was the source of the patterns, the source of the hum. Clara stumbled back, her mind reeling. She had always been skeptical of her grandfather's theories, but now she couldn't deny that something extraordinary was happening. She wasn't alone. Something or someone had brought her here. A sound broke the silence, a soft, melodic chime that seemed to come from all around her. Clara turned, her heart pounding, and saw a figure emerging from the shadows. It was humanoid but not human. Its body was tall and slender, with skin that shimmered like liquid silver. Its eyes were large and luminous, glowing with the same light that filled the chamber. It moved gracefully, almost floating, and as it approached, Clara felt a strange sense of calm wash over her. The being stopped a few feet away, its head tilting slightly as it regarded her. Clara opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Instead, she heard a voice in her mind, soft and resonant. "You have come." Clara blinked, startled. The voice wasn't hers, yet it felt familiar, as though it had always been a part of her. She tried to respond, but the being raised a hand, silencing her. "Do not be afraid. You are here because you are needed. The patterns you saw above are a message, a call. And you, Clara, are the one who can answer it." Clara's mind raced. A message? A call? What did it mean? She wanted to ask, but the being continued. "Long ago, we came to this world not to conquer, but to guide. We left behind the patterns as a way to communicate, to prepare. But over time, your kind forgot. They dismissed the signs as mere curiosities, as tricks of nature. But now the time has come. The patterns are awakening, and you are the key." Clara's legs felt weak. She sank to the ground, her mind struggling to process what she was hearing. It was unlike anything she had ever seen, a towering spire of light and metal pulsing with energy. The being's voice echoed in her mind. "This is what lies ahead, Clara. This is what the patterns are leading to. But the path is not yet clear. You must find the missing pieces. You must complete the message." Clara's vision shifted again, and she was back in the chamber. The being was still there, watching her intently. "Go now, Clara. The answers you seek are above. But remember, you are not alone. We are with you." Before Clara could respond, the light around her began to intensify. She felt herself being lifted, pulled upward until the chamber and the being were gone. She was back in the field, standing among the crops, the patterns glowing faintly in the moonlight. Clara took a deep breath, her mind spinning. She didn't know what had just happened, but one thing was clear: her life would never be the same. Clara stood in the field for what felt like an eternity, her mind racing. The encounter with the being, or whatever it was, had left her shaken but determined. She couldn't ignore what she had seen and heard. The patterns, the symbols, the spire of light in her vision, it all pointed to something far beyond her understanding. But the being had said she was the key, that she needed to decipher the patterns. The question was, where to begin? She pulled out her phone, scrolling through the pictures she had taken earlier. The symbols were clearer now, more distinct. She zoomed in on one of them, a spiral with a series of dots arranged around it. It reminded her of something she had seen in her grandfather's journals. He had always been fascinated by ancient civilizations and their use of symbols to convey complex ideas. Maybe he had left behind more than just a map. Clara turned and began walking back toward the path, her mind still spinning. She needed to get home, to go through her grandfather's things again. There had to be something there, some clue that would help her make sense of all this. The walk back to her car felt longer than it had on the way in. The field seemed to stretch on forever, the patterns shifting subtly as she moved. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched, that the field itself was alive and aware of her presence. But she pushed the thought aside, focusing on the task at hand. When she finally reached her car, she threw her backpack into the passenger seat and started the engine. The drive home was a blur, her thoughts consumed by the events of the day. By the time she pulled into her driveway, the sun had set and the sky was a deep, velvety blue. She spread the map out on the floor, comparing it to the pictures on her phone. The symbols matched, and the numbers corresponded to specific points in the field. Her grandfather had been here before her, had seen the same patterns and tried to understand them. But he had never mentioned any of this to her. Why? Clara's mind raced as she tried to piece it all together. The being had said she was the key, that she needed to complete the message. Maybe her grandfather had started the work, but hadn't been able to finish it. Maybe that was why he had left her the map, why he had hidden the journals. He had known she would find them, that she would continue his work. She grabbed a notebook and began copying the symbols and numbers from the map, her hand moving quickly as she tried to capture every detail. She didn't know what it all meant yet, but she was determined to find out. As she worked, a thought occurred to her. The being had said the patterns were a message, a call. But a call to what? To whom? And what did it have to do with the spire of light she had seen in her vision? Clara set her pen down, her mind spinning. She needed more information. She needed to go back to the field, to explore the points her grandfather had marked on the map. But she couldn't do it alone. She needed help. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through her contacts. There was only one person she could think of who might believe her, who might be willing to help. Her best friend, Marcus. He was a scientist, a researcher who specialized in ancient cultures and languages. If anyone could help her decipher the symbols, it was him. Clara hesitated for a moment, then dialed his number. It rang twice before he picked up. Clara? Hey, what's up? His voice was warm, familiar. Marcus, I need your help, she said, her voice trembling slightly. I found something I can't explain. Can you come over? There was a pause on the other end of the line. Clara, are you okay? You sound weird. I'm fine, she said quickly, but I really need your help. It's important. Another pause, then okay. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Clara let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Thank you, Marcus. Really? She hung up and leaned back against the wall, her mind still racing. She didn't know what she was getting herself into, but she knew one thing for sure, she couldn't stop now. The patterns, the symbols, the being, it was all connected. And she was going to find out how. Marcus arrived at Clara's house just as promised, his car pulling into the driveway with a soft crunch of gravel. Clara met him at the door, her face pale but determined. She didn't waste time with small talk, ushering him inside and straight up to the attic where the journals and map were spread out across the floor. Okay, Marcus said, raising an eyebrow as he took in the chaotic scene. You weren't kidding about needing help. What's all this? Clara took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. It's complicated, but I need you to trust me. Just look at this. She handed him the journal with the symbol and the word alignment written next to it. Marcus frowned as he studied the page. His expression shifted from curiosity to intrigue as he flipped through the journal, his eyes darting over the sketches and notes. This is your grandfather's work, right? The crop circle stuff? Clara nodded. Yes, but it's not just crop circles, Marcus. There's something real here. Something alien. Marcus looked up at her, his brow furrowed. Alien? Clara, you know I'm all for a good mystery, but just listen, she interrupted, pulling out her phone and showing him the pictures she had taken in the field. Look at these patterns. They're not random. They're precise, mathematical. And these symbols, she zoomed in on one of the images. They matched the ones in my grandfather's journals. He was onto something, Marcus. And now I think I am too. Marcus stared at the images, his skepticism slowly giving way to fascination. Okay, this is weird. Really weird. But what does it mean? What are you trying to figure out? Clara hesitated, then told him everything, the field, the patterns, the light, the being. She left nothing out even though she knew how it sounded. Marcus listened in silence, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he sat back, running a hand through his hair. Clara, this is a lot. I mean, I believe you saw something, but a silver alien? A hidden underground chamber? Are you sure you didn't hit your head or something? Clara glared at him. I'm not crazy, Marcus. I know what I saw, and I know what I felt. This is real, and I need your help to figure it out. Marcus held up his hands in surrender. Okay, I believe you. Or at least, I believe that you believe it. So, what's the plan? What do you need me to do? Clara handed him the map, pointing to the marked points. My grandfather mapped out specific locations in the field. I think they're key to deciphering the patterns, but I don't know what to do with them. I was hoping you could help me figure it out. Marcus studied the map, his eyes narrowing as he traced the lines and symbols. This is intricate. It's almost like a puzzle. These numbers here, he pointed to a series of coordinates. They could be references to celestial alignments. And these symbols, they look like a mix of ancient scripts. Sumerian, maybe, or something even older. Clara's heart leapt. So you can read them? Marcus shook his head. Not exactly, but I can try to decode them. It'll take some time, though, and we'll need more data. You said you took pictures of the field. Clara nodded, pulling up the images on her phone. Marcus scrolled through them, his eyes lighting up with excitement. This is incredible. The precision, the symmetry, it's like nothing I've ever seen. If this is a message, it's a complex one. But if we can crack it, we might find out what they're trying to tell us, Clara finished. Marcus looked at her, his expression serious. Clara, if this is real, if there's even a chance it's real, we need to be careful. People don't take kindly to this kind of thing. If word gets out, we could be in over our heads. Clara nodded. I know. That's why I came to you. You're the only one I trust with this. Marcus gave her a small smile. All right, let's get to work. For the next few hours, they pored over the journals and the map, cross-referencing the symbols with ancient texts and astronomical charts. Marcus's expertise proved invaluable as he began to piece together fragments of the message. The symbols, he explained, seemed to represent celestial events, alignments of stars and planets that occurred at specific times. It's like a calendar, Marcus said, pointing to a series of symbols. But not just any calendar. This one seems to predict future events. Look here. He traced a line connecting several symbols. This could be a reference to a planetary alignment that's supposed to happen soon, like within the next few weeks. Clara's eyes widened. What kind of alignment? Marcus frowned, his fingers flying over his laptop as he pulled up an astronomical chart. It's hard to say without more data, but if I'm reading this right, it's pointing to a rare conjunction of Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars. It's not something that happens often. Maybe once every few centuries. Clara's mind raced. The being had said the patterns were a call, a message. Could this alignment be part of it? Could it be a signal? We need to go back to the field, she said suddenly. We need to see if there's more to the patterns. Something we're missing. Marcus hesitated. Clara, it's the middle of the night, and you said yourself the field is strange. Are you sure that's a good idea? Clara shook her head. No, but I don't think we have a choice. If this alignment is coming soon, we need to figure out what it means. And we need to do it fast. Marcus sighed, then nodded. All right, but we're doing this my way. We go in, we take measurements, we document everything. And if anything feels off, we leave. Deal? Clara nodded. Deal. They packed up the journals, the map, and Marcus's equipment, then set off for the field. The drive was quiet, both of them lost in their thoughts. When they arrived, the field was bathed in moonlight, the patterns glowing faintly as though alive. Clara led the way, her heart pounding as they approached the first marked point on the map. Marcus set up his equipment, taking readings and measurements while Clara studied the symbols. As they worked, the hum she had felt earlier returned, faint but unmistakable. Do you hear that? Clara whispered. Marcus nodded, his expression tense. Yeah, it's not natural, but I can't figure out where it's coming from. Clara glanced around, her eyes drawn to a spot in the center of the field. The patterns seemed to converge there, forming a perfect circle. She pointed to it. There, that's where we need to go. Marcus hesitated, then nodded. All right, but stay close. They moved toward the circle, the hum growing louder with each step. As they reached the center, the ground beneath them began to tremble, just as it had before. Clara's breath caught in her throat as the light appeared again, rising from the earth like a beacon. Clara, what the hell? Marcus started, but before he could finish, the light enveloped them both, pulling them into its depths. The light was blinding, but this time Clara felt a strange sense of calm. She wasn't alone. Marcus was with her, his hand gripping hers tightly as they were pulled deeper into the unknown. The hum that had surrounded them in the field was now a resonant vibration, filling the air with an otherworldly energy. When the light finally dimmed, they found themselves standing in the same cavernous chamber Clara had seen before, its walls glowing faintly with the same intricate patterns. Marcus stumbled back, his eyes wide with shock. Clara, what is this place? Clara steadied him, her own heart racing. This is where I was before. This is where I saw it. Marcus asked, his voice trembling. You mean the being? Clara nodded. Yes, it said the patterns are a message, a call, and we're here to answer it. Marcus looked around, his scientific curiosity momentarily overriding his fear. He stepped closer to one of the walls, his fingers tracing the glowing symbols. These are the same symbols from the field, but they're alive. They're pulsating, like they're responding to us. Clara joined him, her eyes scanning the patterns. My grandfather thought they were a form of communication, a way to convey complex ideas across time and space. But I think it's more than that. I think they're a map, a guide to something bigger. Before Marcus could respond, the melodic chime Clara had heard before echoed through the chamber. They turned as one, their eyes drawn to the far end of the room. The being was there again, its silver form shimmering in the dim light. It moved toward them, its luminous eyes fixed on Clara. "You have returned," the voice echoed in their minds. "And you have brought another." Clara stepped forward, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. "This is Marcus. He's here to help me understand, to help me complete the message." The being tilted its head, regarding Marcus with what might have been curiosity. "He carries the knowledge of your world. This is good. The message requires many minds to unlock its secrets." Marcus swallowed hard, his voice barely above a whisper. What message? What are you trying to tell us?" The being raised a hand, and the symbols on the walls began to shift, rearranging themselves into a new pattern. The hum grew louder, more intense, and suddenly, images began to flood their minds. They saw the Spire of Light again, rising from the earth, its energy pulsing in time with the celestial alignment Marcus had identified. They saw the patterns in the field, glowing brighter and brighter as the alignment approached. And they saw something else, a shadow, vast and formless, moving through the stars. "The message is a warning," the being said, its voice heavy with urgency. "The alignment is a key, a doorway, but it is also a beacon. It will draw the attention of those who would destroy your world. You must prepare. You must complete the message, or all will be lost." Clara's breath caught in her throat. A warning? Against what? The being's gaze shifted to the shifting patterns on the wall. The Devourer, a force that consumes worlds, leaving only darkness in its wake. It is drawn to the energy of the alignment, to the power of the spire. If the message is not completed, if the spire is not activated, your world will fall. Marcus stepped forward, his fear giving way to determination. "How do we complete the message? How do we activate the spire?" The being extended a hand, and a single symbol floated toward them, glowing brighter than the rest. "This is the key. It is the final piece of the message, the one your grandfather could not decipher. You must find it. You must bring it here to the chamber before the alignment is complete." Clara stared at the symbol, her mind racing. "Where is it? Where do we find it?" The being's form began to fade, its voice growing softer. "The key lies in the place where the patterns converge, where the earth and sky meet. Seek the heart of the field, and you will find it." And then it was gone, leaving Clara and Marcus alone in the chamber. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of what they had just learned hung heavy in the air. Finally, Marcus broke the silence. "Clara, this is insane. But if what it said is true, we don't have much time. That alignment is happening in less than 2 weeks. We need to find that key." Clara nodded, her mind already working through the possibilities. "The heart of the field, where the patterns converge. That has to be the center where the light appeared. But we've already been there. What are we missing?" Marcus frowned, pulling out his phone and scrolling through the pictures of the field. "Maybe it's not just about the location. Maybe it's about the patterns themselves. Look," he pointed to one of the images. "These symbols here, they're arranged in a specific sequence. It's almost like a code." Clara leaned in, studying the image. "A code? Like a combination?" "Exactly," Marcus said, his excitement growing. "If we can figure out the sequence, maybe we can unlock something. But we need more data. We need to map out the entire field, every symbol, every pattern." Clara hesitated. "That's going to take time, and we don't have much of it." Marcus nodded. "Then we'd better get started." They spent the next several hours in the chamber, documenting every symbol, every pattern they could find. Marcus used his equipment to create a detailed map, while Clara cross-referenced the symbols with her grandfather's journals. Slowly, a picture began to emerge. The patterns weren't just random. They were a complex network, a puzzle waiting to be solved. As they worked, the hum of the chamber grew louder, the symbols on the walls pulsing in time with their progress. It was as though the chamber itself was guiding them, urging them forward. Finally, as the first light of dawn began to filter through the cracks in the chamber's ceiling, Marcus sat back, his face pale but triumphant. "I think I've got it. The sequence. It's a set of coordinates. But not just any coordinates. They're pointing to a specific location in the field." Clara leaned over, her heart pounding as she studied the numbers. "Where does it lead?" Marcus hesitated, then pointed to a spot on the map. "Here, right at the edge of the field. But there's something else. The sequence also includes a time. Tonight at midnight." Clara's eyes widened. "That's when we need to be there. That's when we'll find the key." Marcus nodded, his expression grim. "But we need to be careful. If this is as important as the being said, we can't afford to make a mistake." Clara took a deep breath, her mind made up. "Then we'll be ready. We'll go back to the field tonight and find the key, no matter what it takes." The day passed in a blur of preparation. Clara and Marcus barely slept, their minds consumed by the task ahead. They gathered every tool and piece of equipment they might need. Flashlights, cameras, notebooks, and even a portable scanner Marcus had borrowed from his lab. By the time the sun began to set, they were ready. As they drove back to the field, the tension between them was palpable. Neither of them spoke much, each lost in their own thoughts. Clara couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something monumental, something that would change their lives, and possibly the world, forever. When they arrived, the field was eerily quiet, the patterns in the crops glowing faintly under the light of the rising moon. They parked at the edge of the field and began the long walk to the coordinates Marcus had deciphered. The air was thick with anticipation, the hum of the field growing louder as they approached their destination. The spot was unremarkable at first glance, just another part of the field where the crops grew in their perfect geometric patterns. But as Clara and Marcus stepped closer, they noticed something strange. The ground beneath their feet was softer, almost spongy, and the air seemed to shimmer with a faint golden light. "This is it," Marcus whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum. "The heart of the field." Clara nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. She knelt down, brushing aside the stalks of wheat to reveal a small, circular indentation in the ground. It was no more than a few inches wide, but it pulsed with the same golden light they had seen in the chamber. "The key," Clara said, her voice trembling. "It has to be here." Marcus set down his equipment and began scanning the area, his eyes fixed on the readings. "There's something beneath us. A structure, maybe, but it's not natural. The composition is unlike anything I've ever seen." Clara reached into her backpack and pulled out a small trowel. "We need to dig, carefully." They worked together, carefully removing the soil around the indentation. As they dug, the golden light grew brighter, illuminating their faces and casting long shadows across the field. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, their tools hit something solid. Clara brushed away the last of the dirt, revealing a small, metallic object. It was circular, about the size of her palm, and covered in intricate engravings that matched the symbols they had seen in the chamber. In the center was a single, glowing symbol, the key. "This is it," Clara whispered, her voice filled with awe. "This is what we've been looking for." Marcus reached out, his fingers brushing against the object. "It's warm, and it's vibrating, like it's alive." Clara carefully lifted the key from the ground, holding it in her hands. As she did, the hum of the field grew louder, the patterns around them glowing brighter. The ground beneath their feet began to tremble, and the air was filled with a low, resonant tone. "We need to get back to the chamber," Clara said, her voice urgent. "Now." They didn't need to be told twice. Clutching the key, they ran back through the field, the patterns lighting their way. The hum grew louder with each step, the ground shaking beneath their feet. By the time they reached the center of the field, where the light had first appeared, the air was thick with energy. Clara held up the key, her hands trembling. "What do we do now?" Marcus looked around, his eyes wide with fear and excitement. I think we need to activate it. But how? Before Clara could respond, the ground beneath them split open, the blinding light rising once again. This time, they didn't resist. Holding the key tightly, they stepped into the light, letting it pull them down into the chamber. When the light faded, they were back in the cavernous room, the walls pulsing with the same golden light as the key. The being was there too, its form shimmering as it approached them. You have found the key, it said, its voice filled with a mixture of relief and urgency. Now you must complete the message. Clara held out the key, her voice steady. What do we do? The being extended a hand and the key floated from Clara's grasp, settling into a small indentation in the wall. As it did, the symbols around it began to shift, rearranging themselves into a new pattern. The hum grew louder, more intense, and the chamber was filled with a blinding light. When the light dimmed, the walls were covered in a new set of symbols, a message, clear and unmistakable. Clara and Marcus stared at it, their minds struggling to comprehend what they were seeing. It's a blueprint, Marcus said, his voice filled with awe. For the Spire. It's telling us how to build it. Clara's heart raced as she realized what this meant. The being said the Spire is a defense, a way to protect our world from the Devourer. But we don't have much time. The alignment is almost here. The being's voice echoed in their minds once more. You have done well, but the work is not yet complete. You must share this knowledge, for the Spire cannot be built by two alone. The fate of your world depends on it. Clara nodded, her mind made up. We'll do it. We'll build the Spire. But we'll need help. Marcus pulled out his phone, his hands shaking as he dialed a number. I know people. Scientists, engineers. They'll listen to us. They have to. As they left the chamber, the key still glowing in Clara's hands, they knew their lives would never be the same. The road ahead would be difficult, fraught with challenges and disbelief. But they also knew they had no choice. The message had been delivered and the fate of the world rested in their hands. Weeks later, as the alignment approached, the Spire began to rise. Built in the heart of the field, its towering form pulsed with the same golden light as the key. Scientists and engineers from around the world had come together, united by Clara and Marcus's determination and the undeniable truth of the message. When the alignment finally occurred, the Spire activated its energy, reaching out into the stars. The Devourer, drawn by the beacon, was met with a force it could not overcome. The Spire's light pushed it back, protecting the Earth and ensuring its survival. Clara and Marcus stood together, watching as the Spire's light faded into the night sky. They had done it. They had completed the message, and in doing so, they had saved the world. But as they turned to leave, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The patterns, the symbols, the being, they were all part of something bigger. And she knew, deep down, that their journey was far from over.